Assalamu alaikum everybody. I hope you are all right. Are you all able to hear me? Okay. Right. We have a newcomer today, Imaduddin. Imad, can you hear me? We can't hear you. If you can try to speak. Imaduddin. Anyways, ये इमादुद्दीन साहब रजिस्टर हुए थे हमारे साथ शुरू से. But it's the first time we are seeing him. Imad, can you speak and introduce yourself? Okay. Right. अगर Okay, ji. Then let's move on. Today we had to start with the create WBS process. We are studying scope and we have already covered the plan scope management and collect requirements and define scope. So pretty much we have done everything which is important for moving on to the WBS. This is the last step in planning. Here we will do the last work of scope definition. After scope definition is the creation of a work breakdown structure, which will be expanding the project down to the work package level. We will be breaking it open down to the work package level. Although we can break it down further to activity level, which is not required right now. That is the job of time management, and in time management we break it down to the activity level. So there we take work packages which are created in WBS, and those work packages are further broken down to activities. So here we are only creating the work breakdown structure. So create WBS is the process of subdividing the project deliverables and project work into smaller, more manageable components. The benefit of having WBS is that all subsequent knowledge areas will be conveniently moving on, like time management, scope management, cost management, other knowledge areas will be comfortable with the work packages to work with. Everybody cannot be looking at the big picture. They can have the broken down parts to the work package level, and they can start working from there onwards. The key benefit is that it provides a framework for what has to be delivered, and this process is performed once or at predefined points in the project. So once is now, and after that, whenever there is a change in the WBS, we will be changing that. We'll be doing that. So the inputs, tools, and techniques on the outputs of this process are project management plan, which includes the scope management plan. We require the requirements management plan for creating WBS. Project documents, we need the project scope statement and the requirement documents, and enterprise environmental factor and process assets are anyways going to be there. Tools and techniques we use here is the expert judgment and decomposition. It's quite simple. Very few tools. Expert judgment, naturally, for breaking open the WBS, we may seek advice and expertise from various corners. As far as decomposition is concerned, decomposition is a skill of breaking a thing open into logical smaller parts. So we will be using this skill to decompose our work, our project into phases and further into work packages. output of this process would be the scope baseline, which actually is also going to include the work breakdown structure itself and the WBS dictionary, which I defined earlier, that the lowest portions, the work packages of the WBS, all are listed down in a table with their brief descriptions and little attributes of each have been defined there. So this document is called WBS dictionary. So WBS dictionary, and the scope statement which we have taken as an input, all these three things put together are called scope baseline. And in project document update, we will be updating the assumption log and the requirement documentation. Requirement documentation we are taking as input also, and we are updating it. And assumption log, do you remember we started creating this assumption log since the development of charter, and since then every process would be taking its own assumption and adding to this assumption log. So assumption log is a permanent output for all of the processes so far. The data flow diagram can also be seen. You see the scope management plan is coming from the project management plan, the scope statement and the requirement document is coming from the project document. Enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets are coming from the organization. And after the create, WBS has created the scope baseline. The scope baseline is going into the project management plan, and the project documents being updated by assumption log and the requirement documentation. WBS is a hierarchical decomposition of the total scope of work. What is the overall scope of your work? That work is broken down hierarchically down to smaller work and then smaller work and ultimately the work packages. And those work packages are also, though work package is considered to be the lowest portion of WBS, but this can further be broken down into activities. By its name, you can see this is a work package. It is a package of work, and each package of work may have more than one activity. So those activities are not the matter of concern at this stage, but at least we should be able to break down the whole scope into smaller scopes of the work. So if I divide the whole scope in four parts, so these are four major portions which have to be acquired, or delivered, or developed. Then each one can be further broken down. Ultimately, the work package level comes, and the work package level is actually representing a part of the scope, right? So if I sum up all the work packages, that will sum up to the whole scope of the project. WBS organizes and defines the term scope of the project and represents the work specified in the currently approved project scope statement. So whatever is the scope statement being developed, we are going to move ahead from there, and based on that scope statement, we are going to decompose our scope down to smaller levels in hierarchy. So the inputs, as we understand, these are the inputs, these are the tools and techniques. Tools and techniques, expert judgment, we have been studying for quite some time now, but at least decomposition is something new. So what is decomposition? This is a technique used for dividing and subdividing the project scope and project deliverables into smaller and more manageable parts. The work package is the work defined at the lowest level of the WBS. The WBS is to be broken down to this specific level for which cost and duration can be estimated and managed. You see, this is that level where you can comfortably and confidently say that this portion of work can be done in this much money and this much time, where estimations are possible. You see, estimations are possible at the overall project level as well, but those are guesstimates, they are not estimates. Because looking, if somebody calls you that we want to construct a five-star hotel at this place, tell me how much will it cost. So you can make an educated guess. But that guess is not supposedly much relied upon. जी शरिया.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर.
Assalamu
सर
alaikum.
ये ये वर्क पैकेज की कोई रियल एग्जांपल सर देंगे प्रोजेक्ट पर्सपेक्टिव से? आई मीन
It's very simple. If I am constructing a house, construction of a wall is a work package because wall itself includes a lot many activities to construct the wall. So the person responsible for constructing the wall would be responsible for all the activities within that work package. That is to bring in the bricks and make the mortar and do the plastering and all that and whatever all the tasks involved in that would be part of that work package. So we will not be going into the minutest details when we are creating the WBS. We will leave it out at the work package level as if further can be designed by the uh, team itself. Team is responsible for designing further details. जी Sharyat.
ठीक है सर, थैंक यू।
So, okay. The level of decomposition is often guided by the degree of control needed to effectively manage the project. This is a very important sentence and it tells you how much do you break down the WBS, up to what level you should go. In the previous slide also, it had said that go down to the level where it is easy to estimate the time, cost, and effort. You see, um, at the topmost level, it is not easy, although we can make a guesstimate, but that is not really based on any actual work. That may be based on the historical data that there was a five-star hotel constructed very recently and it costed around this much money. That is okay. But you see, the design of your five-star hotel is not going to be exactly like the same one, and the prices are not going to be same, even if the design is same. But naturally, you are going to have your own construction, your own design. Maybe the estimates are going to be very different from that. But actually, on ground, it you would know. But naturally, the guesstimate you have taken in the beginning, that is not taken very seriously. This is taken just for the broad evaluation purposes, and later on you go down to the detailed analysis and detailed estimates are created, and those estimates will reveal the actual figures. So do not just rely on that kind of thing. So once I have broken it down, now I am at a comfortable level of detail where I can assign the time and cost and resources very easily and comfortably. So this is the level which is called work package level. So this is also the level at which the project manager can exercise his control over the project. So if wall construction is was a work package, then he would ask for the progress of wall construction from the person who was made responsible for that. He does not concern himself about the internal activities of the work package, but the progress would be taken on from the work package perspective. So the level of detail for work packages may vary with the size and complexity of the project. Now, this is another very important aspect, that are all the work packages equal in all kinds of projects? Generally speaking, people think that work packages are just like, people have heuristics defining a work package. A work package could be, as something which can be done in this much time. Well, yes and no, because if you are really talking about the same kind of industry and same kind of project, the level of detail is also the same, that is okay. But if the size of the project and the industry is completely different, the complexity of the project is completely different, will it be the same for you, the size of the work package? Probably not. For example, you are working on a project of constructing a house, and your work package could be a wall. But what if you are responsible for a project of constructing a new phase of Barrier Town? The project is to construct a new phase of Barrier Town. Now, what will you do? Are you equal to constructing a house? No, not at all. Constructing a house is a small project, and constructing the whole Barrier Town, a new phase of Barrier Town, is a completely another project. The work packages are not going to be same. The work package of constructing the Barrier Town phase will not be a wall. It could be a complete street of houses, but not a wall. Therefore, the level of detail may differ from project to project depending upon the size and complexity of the project. I hope you will understand this point, because certain heuristics does not apply to us just due to this. Heuristics are the man-made rules which you have just inherited from your seniors or bosses or elders, and they say that this thing is done like this. So you just uh, take it to your heart that this is always to be done like that. But naturally, there are some environmental conditions, and those must apply. And these heuristics have no basis except for they are coming from someone reliable, or you trust someone to that level. Decomposition. Decomposition of the total project work into work packages generally involve the following activities. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to divide the whole project into work packages. The hierarchy which we are trying to create starts from the project and goes down to the work package level. It may have number of levels in between. So what does it include? Identifying and analyzing the deliverables and related work. So I am clear about what I am doing. I know I am, for example, constructing a house. Then what are the various deliverables of this house? Naturally, a house is a deliverable by itself, but what are the major deliverables within the house? Identifying and analyzing the deliverables and related work, then structuring and organizing the WBS. How, in what different categories this job is to be done. Now, this is very interesting because the WBS could be perceived by different people in different ways. One person may be trying to break the work down, other person may be trying to break the deliverable down, some other person may be trying to break the process down. We don't have any problem. Howsoever you want to do it, whatever structure you want to use, but it should be properly organized. Then decomposing the upper WBS levels into lower levels. For example, you have divided your project into 4 phases. Maybe another person likes to break his project into 4 sub-projects. Yet another person can have it divided into 4 major process groups. So howsoever you want to do it, that is your way of doing it, but decomposing the upper WBS level into a lower level of detail component is what is required. So you keep decomposing one level to other and other to yet another. Ultimately, you are comfortable with that level that you can now easily and accurately assign resources, time, and cost to that level. So that is the level which is called the work package. Developing and assigning identification codes to the WBS components. So whatever is the breakdown structure, you must allocate a identification coding system, a numbering system by which you will recognize that if the whole project is declared number one, then its 4 parts will be 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4, and further on and on, down to the level where the work package is. And the work package is considered to be the last and most detailed level. Lastly, verifying that the degree of decomposition of the deliverables is appropriate. They should not be broken down any further, or maybe we have already broken down to a level which is not really desirous. We may have to go up one level because we have gone to the extra detail. So in the next slide, you see an example of a WBS, rather a portion of a WBS, not really a complete WBS. It shows that you are developing a value management system project, which has been divided into 4 parts. 1.1 is need assessment, 1.2 is standards development, 1.3 is system engineering, and 1.4 is project management. So you have divided your value management system project into 4 parts: need assessment, standard development, system engineering, and project management. 1.1 need assessment has further been subdivided into further 4 parts: 1.1.1 is current system audit. 1.1.2 is requirement determination. 1.1.3 is alternatives development. 1.1.4 is system requirement development. And it has also shown the lowest level work packages. Current system audit having two work packages, 1.1.1.1 component identification and 1.1.1.2 which is component analysis. Similarly, requirement determination has 1.1.2.1 is gap assessment and 1.1.2.2 is requirement changes identification, and so on and so forth. This is how a WBS may look like. This is just a partial thing. You can have such kind of divisions under every branch. All of these branches will be expanded to whatever level of detail you want to go. But lowest level, which is this level, this is the 4-figure level, 1.1.1.1, 1.1.3.2 and all that. So all this is the level which is your lowest level, and these are showing the work packages. A WBS structure may be created through various approaches. Some of the popular methods include the top-down approach, the use of organization-specific guidelines, and the use of WBS templates. We also have a bottom-up approach, which can be used to group subcomponents. So there are many ways of doing it. In a top-down approach, all the key planners sit together for the project and they decide how the project should be broken down. What should be the first level and what should be the ingredients of the first level, what should they be named, and what would be the next level, what is their name, and ultimately then they start exploring down to the work package level, and then lowest level work packages are identified. This is good, but this has two problems. First of all, we understand that when you are doing project management, maximum number of people must be involved in it, meaning especially the project team members must be involved in it. Our project manager alone or sitting with just the top level stakeholders, top level executives, he cannot create a WBS on his own. When we are creating WBS, you must get the team involved as well as the stakeholders involved in it. I'm not asking you to involve all the stakeholders. So top-down approach, if the people are more, will be very difficult to decide because that will launch a lot of discussion which will never end. So if you are sitting alone, you can do your own, according to your will and wish, you can make whatever structure you want, but that structure is not actually having the blessing of all the stakeholders and even your team members. Therefore, top-down approach may not work at all. Or if at all it works, then you must be working in an autocratic system in which you are enforcing your decision on everybody and nobody is happy about it. The better approach is a bottom-up approach in which you let the people get involved into identification of activities and they can start working from bottom up, not from top down. The workers, the people who are your team members and others, they are made to sit together and they are brainstorming on the activities, what activities should be there in the project without any concern with what is on top. They are just explained what the project is and they are asked to come up with whatever activity comes to their mind. So they may come up with hundreds of activities, they can debate about it, they can sort, they can, ultimately come up with a list of all the activities which should be in the project. And then they could be grouped into different several categories. We can start building the story upwards until we reach the project. So this way, in a bottom-up way, we can also create a work breakdown structure, but this could be much more effective because this has the input of all the team members. This is also good from another perspective, that is, if you are likely to miss out something, someone else will remind you. So many people are involved that there is no possibility of missing out a specific aspect. On the other hand, if you are going on a top-down approach, then because you are thinking together, so there is an element of group think. Whomsoever is leading the group is enforcing his decision on that. and there will be many silent workers in it who will not like to contribute their input just because they're influenced by the person in power. So that means their opinion will never be entertained. Number one. Number two, they will never know what actually how the lower level workers will feel like, because lower level workers are not being involved at this stage. Then the third disadvantage of this system is this takes a lot of time due to a lot of discussion going on every aspect. In bottom up estimation, the discussion is minimum to almost minimum or null. WBS structure can be represented in a number of forms. You can start with using phases of the project life cycle and the second level you can decompose. Second level could be phases, and they can further be broken down into products, deliverables, or some project activities or whatever. Use major deliverables. Maybe you start with the project is divided into four major deliverables, and you have, rather than having a project phases, you start with having the major deliverables, and then major deliverables are broken down. But remember, howsoever you break your project life cycle, project WBS, work breakdown structure, the lowest level will definitely have to be a work package. It should not be a deliverable. Actual work should be there. What is to be done could be clearly apparent from the work package name. Incorporating subcomponents that may be developed by organizations outside of the project team, such as contracted work, the seller then develops the supporting contract WBS as part of the contracted work. So, if you have a WBS, then ultimately your subcontractors who will be outsourced, who will they will also be hooking into your WBS, and they will be creating the WBS for their portion of work in alignment with your bigger WBS. Here is another example of a WBS organized by phases. In this, we have got project management and product requirement and detailed design, construct and integrate. And project management has been divided into subcategory of planning, meeting and administration, and maybe this planning may have its own activities. The meeting may have its own activities, and administration may have its own activities. So these are the work packages. If you can, have another combination of the two, hybrid kind of a thing, in which this is a aircraft system in which all other things are process oriented. The project management is a group, training is a group, data, all things to do with data are grouped together, support equipment is grouped together, facilities are grouped together, test and evaluations are grouped together, and the physical product has been grouped together. And if you look at it, this is the product breakdown going on. Air vehicle is the product, and then the further breakdown is airframe, engine, communication system, navigation system, fire control system, and so on and so forth. So you can have breakdown of each one of these. So this may be your work package, this may be your WBS with all these lower level items shown in white to be your work packages. So as I was saying, decomposition of the upper level WBS component requires subdividing the work for each of the deliverables or subcomponents into its most fundamental components, where WBS components represent verifiable product, service, or result. If an agile approach is used, epics can be decomposed into user stories. So, if I have mentioned earlier the role of epics and user stories in agile, you would know epics is the first version of requirement coming from the stakeholder or the customer. That is a unsorted story, unrefined story is epic, which is further, and one epic may point to more than one features or functions. When this is refined into user stories, then the one epic may be broken down into a number of user stories. Each user story will represent one function or one feature. That is the agile approach. So basically what we are doing, this is kind of a WBS being formed. We are starting with the project, and then we have got various epics, and each epic is broken down into user stories. So the WBS may be structured as an outline, an organizational chart, or other method that identifies a hierarchical breakdown. Verifying the correctness of the decomposition requires determining that the lower level WBS components are those that are necessary and sufficient for completion of the corresponding high level deliverable. You see, until and unless your deliverable becomes clear, you will keep breaking down. But breaking it down any further will be useless, because then uh, uh, it is not contributing towards the overall objective. It should be associated with uh, your higher level objective and your upper level. Different deliverables can have different levels of decomposition. It is very much possible that one chain has been broken down to 3 levels and the other chain has broken down to 4 levels. So breakdown can have this kind of variance, that all levels are not equal. To arrive at a work package, the work for some deliverables need to be decomposed only to the next level, while others need additional levels of decomposition. As the work is decomposed to greater levels of detail, the ability to plan, manage, and control the work is enhanced. Because in the beginning, we have got a lot of uncertainty. We are not really sure. It is not really visible what is going to be done. But as we move ahead and more things are become available, and knowledge is become available for that, so we can start planning them. However, excessive decomposition can lead to non-productive management efforts. If you are breaking down the WBS to an unnecessarily detailed level, then it will have a lot of overheads, inefficient use of resources, decreased efficiency in performing the work, and difficulty aggregating the data over different levels of the WBS. Decomposition may not be possible for a deliverable or subcomponent that will be accomplished far into the future. The project management team usually waits until the deliverable or subcomponent is agreed on, so the details of the WBS can be developed. This technique is sometimes referred to as rolling wave planning. I hope we already understand what the rolling wave planning is. As far as WBS is concerned, we have a separate standard by PMI that is called the practice standard for WBS, work breakdown structure, and further details about scope or WBS are given there. How to do it and further detailed instructions about it are provided in this standard. But and you can go through it. Why not? This is very, very good if you have gone through it. But whatever knowledge is available in PMBOK may also be sufficient for you for passing the PMP exam. But naturally, I don't stop you from studying further and getting into this work breakdown structure standard. You must read. The WBS represents all product and project work, including the project management work. The total of the work at the lowest levels should roll up to the higher levels, so that nothing is left out and no extra work is performed. So we will only be performing what is shown in the WBS. At the lowest level, say I have got 3 work packages at the lowest level, I will sum them up, then that would be equal to the sum of my upper level. The upper levels are summed up, and then this way this can keep summing up to the top, and the total project cost can be calculated this way. This is sometimes called the 100% rule. So the sum of the parts is equal to the whole. For specific information regarding the WBS, refer to the practice standard for work breakdown structure, second edition, shown above. This standard contains industry specific examples of WBS templates that can be tailored to specific projects in a particular application area. The scope baseline we talked about, we are to create a scope baseline, and as I said earlier, the scope baseline will include 3 things: the scope statement, work breakdown structure which we have just created, and the WBS dictionary, which is the list of all the work packages. WBS dictionary is the list of all the work packages in tabular form, which can be changed only through formal change control procedure. So this baseline what we create, once it is baseline, once it is approved and signed, then the even project manager has no authority to make any changes to it. He will have to process it through the change request procedure, and ultimately, if the change control board allows it, only then the changes to the scope statement can be, or scope baseline uh, can be done. What are the components of scope baseline? As I was already explaining to you, the scope statement, the WBS, and WBS will naturally have the work packages and planning packages and WBS dictionary. What is a work package? I have already explained. This is the lowest level of detail in the WBS. So any package of work, construct a wall is a work package. So that is one work package. But there is another term normally used, which is called planning package. And planning package is that uh, group of activities which for which the further details to break down are not yet available. We don't know how this job can be done, so we have left it as a black box, and when details about that job becomes available, we will then break it down further and we will plan it at that time. So we can always go into execution where one of the planning packages is still pending further breakdown. So planning package could be a work package, could be bigger than a work package. So planning package is that portion of work for which all details are not available and that has yet to be broken down. And as soon as those details are available, we will be breaking it down. So as far as the scope statement is concerned, project scope statement includes the description of the project scope, major deliverables, assumptions, and constraints, as we created in the previous process of defined scope. WBS is a hierarchical decomposition of the total scope of work to be carried out by the project team to accomplish the project objectives and create the required deliverables. Each descending level of the WBS, the lower level, represents an increasingly detailed definition of the project work. As we break it down further, the lower level explains the things even better. A work package is the lowest level of the WBS is a work package with a unique identifier. Every work package has its own unique number. These identifiers provide a structure for hierarchical summation of cost, schedule, and resource information and form a code of account. Code of account is a referral number through which the accounting people refers to the work package. Each work package is part of a control account. So every work package will form part of one control account. For example, I am constructing a house, a wall is my work package, and maybe the the whole room, not all the rooms, but this room is a control account. In this control account, I have got 5 different work packages, and every work packages has got its own activities, and I have the estimate of all the work packages. If I sum up the estimate of all work packages, that would give me the total of the control account. Control account is the level at which the accounting people are interested to be getting the progress. So that much is for the control account. Then is the planning package, as I was already explaining it to you. A control account may include one or more planning packages. A planning package work breakdown structure component below the control account. So in the room, if room is a control account, then under the room and above the work package, there could be a level which could be called as a control account level. Control account is for accounting purposes. So the progress on this whole control account for all these work packages within this control account are being reported to the account. Then the WBS dictionary is a document that provides detailed deliverables, activity, and scheduling information about each component of the WBS. I would rather say this shows all the various attributes of the work packages. WBS dictionary is a document that supports the WBS according to the WBS. Most of the information included in the WBS dictionary is created by other processes and added to this document at a later stage. So once we move ahead in scheduling, the estimates are being done and all those, the data will start becoming available, and that data can be filled into the attributes of WBS dictionary. What all could be the attributes of WBS dictionary? For example, the identifying number, the code of account, that is called code of account, is the identifying number. Assumptions and constraints for this specific work package. Each work package, all the assumptions and constraints can be listed down there. Who is responsible organization, schedule milestone within this work WBS, associated schedule activities, resources required, cost estimates, quality requirements, acceptance criteria is very important here, and technical references and other agreement information, etc. Then comes the project document updates. Naturally, we understand we have got two types of updates coming here. One is the assumption log. All the assumption log is updated with additional assumptions or constraints that were identified during the create WBS process, and requirement documentation may be updated to include approved change resulting from the create WBS process. If you bring in any change, that change must be predicted and must be shown and portrayed into the requirements document. So this brings us to the end of create WBS process. Any questions so far? Please, you can raise your hands if at all there is any question. जी शरियार.
सर ये जो कंट्रोल अकाउंट है, आई मीन आप समझा रहे थे कि वो उसके अंडर जो है ना वर्क पैकेजेस होते हैं, उसका जो लेवल है ये WBS से भी ऊपर है?
नहीं,
आई मीन
दिस इज विद इन द WBS. This is within the WBS and this is above the work package. Control account is above the work package. तो बीच का कोई भी लेवल हो सकता है.
बेसिकली इसका मेन पर्पस है कि जब हम उसका जो है रिसोर्सेज एस्टिमेट कॉस्ट स्केड्यूलिंग जब निकालते हैं तो सारा कंट्रोल अकाउंट पे जाता है, और क्या कॉस्ट है बेसिकली उससे वो एस्टिमेट होती है. हमें
एस्टिमेट भी होती है, प्रोग्रेस भी मेजर होती है, सब कुछ होता है. Every control account is basically from the purpose of reporting purposes of cost reporting purposes, this is required. So we have made sections within our project that this room will be reported separately and this room will be reported separately. So every component is reported separately. That is my control account, and within every component there could be a number of work packages, and within every work package there could be a number of activities.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Most welcome. Any other questions? जी आज फैसल नहीं बोल रहे हैं. फैसल, are you okay with it?
Sir, it's okay, alhamdulillah.
Okay, wonderful. Right. So let's start the validate scope process. Now we are at the end of the last two processes, which are in monitoring and control, we are now discussing. And I hope you understand what is the purpose of validate scope process. You remember we said in execution, when the deliverable is produced, whatever form it is in, it is not, I'm not talking about the end product or the final deliverable, but whatever process we do, whatever activity we do, something will come out of it, and whatever comes out in form of a product, service, or result is called deliverable. So we are not talking about the last and end deliverable. We are just talking about any deliverable which is coming out of any process, and every deliverable goes to monitoring and control, and it goes through two types of inspections, one after the other. The first inspection, as you understand, is the quality control, which is being done for what purpose? For the purpose of correctness. Whatever has been done, is it correct? Is it within the tolerance limit of the stakeholder, or it is going out of the tolerance limit? If it is not within the tolerance limit, then it is rejected, right? So that is kind of a change request, that is rework is to be done or something like that, but that is not approved. The inspection resulted in a failure. If this inspection is passed, the deliverable is called that it has been quality checked, therefore it is approved. Sorry, not approved, it is verified deliverable by quality. So the verified deliverable then used to go to this process, and this process is validate scope, and validate scope is responsible for conducting the second inspection, and that is for the purposes of user acceptance, right? So yeah, or you can say this will check what? This will check the completeness of the requirements. Are all the requirements fulfilled or not? So this is kind of a checklist. Even when the user in the user acceptance, even customer wants to come in, he can come in, but usually customer gives you a checklist and asks you to comply according to that. So you will comply by yourself, and if customer is not there, even you can be made responsible for validating the scope. So validate scope is the process of formalizing acceptance of the completed project deliverable. The key benefits of this process is that it brings objectivity to the acceptance process and increases the probability of final product service or result acceptance by validating each deliverable. So we have a mechanism by which the acceptance will be done and validation testing is carried out. So this acceptance criteria, if you remember, we have already defined in scope statement, and we also refer to the acceptance criteria in our work package WBS. What do you call that? WBS document. WBS. What was the output in the previous class? WBS dictionary. Sorry, I just skipped my mind. WBS dictionary. Yeah. Okay. So where were we? So the processes we have in this process, we have the inputs the same: project management plan, project document, enterprise environmental factors, and organizational process assets. In project management plan, we need both the scope management plan and the requirement management plan. When did we use both of these earlier in scope? Did we use both of them somewhere? Can anyone raise hand and tell me where the scope management plan as well as requirement management plan were used? Which process? G. Aliza.
Sir, it was used in collect requirements.
Wonderful, wonderful. So that was the only process which used the requirement management plan as well as the scope management plan. After that, we had defined the scope where requirement management plan was not required. We had created the WBS where the requirement management plan was not required. Why is it required in validate scope? Because validate scope is the process where the requirements are going to be checked. Therefore, the requirement management plan is necessary to be there, because requirement management plan or the requirement documentation was the primary document based on which the scope was developed, the product scope was developed. The scope management plan and requirement management plan are input, and naturally the scope baseline is definitely my input because I have to comply with that scope baseline. And the project documents we may require here is the lessons learned register, quality reports, and definitely the requirement documentation and requirement traceability matrix. These are the two necessary and the most important inputs for the validated scope process. So I need to have scope management plan, requirement management plan, and scope baseline, and especially the requirement document and requirement traceability matrix. These are the major and important inputs. So what do we do in tools and techniques? Because this is a kind of inspection, so we carry out the inspection. And what is the purpose of this inspection? The purpose of this inspection is completeness and acceptance. It will check the completeness of the product and then do the user acceptance. So this is the purpose of inspection. And what is the purpose of inspection of quality control? Anyone who can tell me? What is the purpose of inspection of quality control? Ji Sufyan, can you tell me? Purpose of inspection for quality control. जी फैसल
सर डिलीवरेबल वेरीफाइड किया जाता है सर इसमें
वेरीफाई किया जाता है और क्या देखा जाता है? व्हाट डू वी सी?
सर
वी सी
कि
द करेक्ट
डिलीवरेबल एज पर
we see the correctness. How correct is, we see the correctness there and verifies it. Validate nahi, verifies it. And in validate scope, what we do, we seize the completeness and validates it. Or in other words, you can say we use a user acceptance. Ji Shahryar.
ये सर बेसिकली मैं सेम कहने लगा था कि करेक्टनेस उसके बेसिक फीचर्स डिलीवरेबल की जो है ना करेक्टनेस उसमें वैलिडेट होती है
जी हाँ
सर मेरा दूसरा एक क्वेश्चन था इस पे आई डोंट नो आप शायद क्लियर करेंगे अभी आगे ये जो इसमें डिसीजन मेकिंग का क्या रोल है इधर आई मीन वोटिंग क्यों रिक्वायर्ड है इधर
Okay. There is a board or a team of experts who are inspecting, right? So those
Yes, sir.
people must agree that this thing should be validated or not validated, right? So they have independent vote, and then you may have a voting policy, as I have shown you that there could be unanimous decision is required, or majority decision is required, or plurality is required. So for this matter, probably we'll go for a unanimous decision. So all the members must unanimously agree that this item should be verified, should be validated.
Sir, this is something, sir, it is still not clear to me. I mean, like, why they have to vote it? Because it is the requirement is already captured in the requirement documentation, right? As well as in the requirement traceability matrix. So it is very much clear. I mean,
just imagine.
So
there must be a perception.
Yeah.
There must be a perception of the person checking it. He may be checking it with a person. Even judges have different perceptions. You understand? Although if somebody has killed someone, he should be killed for that. But there is compassion. There is something else. Other situations and everything they consider. And in some cases they give punishment. In some cases they do not give punishment. Some cases they just give it. So that is exactly why we need to have voting there. Even when they are sitting in a panel, they have to vote, and their votes will actually make up the final decision. And it is always good that only a single person should not be made to decide on the fate of something. So if the scope is being accepted, that must be some key stakeholders, like a member from the customer, a member from the other stakeholders, or maybe contractor side. 3 or 4 people will be sitting here, and they would be involved in the process of scope validation, and they will be accepting or rejecting. And the acceptance and rejection, maybe there is a conflict. One person is saying this should be accepted, other person is saying this is not to be accepted. What will you do? Got it? Ji Shailesh, are you able to listen to me? Ji Shailesh, can you listen to me now?
Yes, sir, I can hear you now.
As usual, we lost sound for some time. So do tell me.
It's fine, sir. It is clear actually.
Okay, okay. So that is how the voting is done here. So inspection and then you have decision making, very simple, not many processes here, not many things involved. And as a result of that, because this is the last inspection, the thing which comes out of it is the accepted deliverable. Now, this has been, the user acceptance testing has been done, and this product is now ready to deliver to the customer. Then, because we are in monitoring and control, we will be creating some analysis and some decisions are coming out of it. So the work performance information will be generated and will be going to the monitor and control project work. And change request, if any, if something is wrong, naturally change request is a defective item or something is to be corrected. So change request will go to integrated change control, and ultimately that would be resulting in an approved change request or otherwise. Then the project documents which will update as a result of this, the lessons learned register which was input into it is going to be output from here, updated, duly updated. Um, Quality reports were just the input, they are not to be updated, but the requirement documents and requirement traceability metrics both are going to be updated as a result of validate scope. Look at the data flow diagram. The things are amply clear. The project management plan is coming from the project management, from the project management plan archive. Direct and managed project execution had given us the work performance data. I'm sorry, which it is not shown here. This was slightly confusing me. Work performance data should have been shown in the inputs also. That is my mistake. Work performance data should have been here. That is why the work performance information can go out of it. Without work performance data, you cannot generate the work performance information. So work performance data is to be input. Verified deliverables are to be input, and verified deliverables means that the quality control has already been done, and that is also missing from the input. My mistake again. So the two items are missing here: the verified deliverable and the work performance data. They must be there. Products documents are the same which I just shown you, and ultimately the accepted deliverables directly go to close project or phase. Any change request go to perform integrated change control. The work performance information generated by validate scope goes to the monitor and control project work, and or the remaining project documents are updated accordingly. So everything else is right. The only missing data was the work performance data and the verified deliverable in input that must have been shown. Validate scope. Verified deliverable obtained from the control quality process are reviewed with the customer or sponsor. That is why the voting is required. The customer or sponsor to ensure they are completed satisfactorily and have received formal acceptance of the deliverables by the customer or sponsor. So we need to have a consensus here. That is exactly why we need to have the decision. In this process, the outputs obtained as a result of the planning processes in the project scope management knowledge area, such as the requirement documentation or the scope baseline, as well as the work performance data, obtained from the execution process in other knowledge area are the basis for performing the validation and for final acceptance. The validate scope process differs from the control quality process in that the former is primarily concerned with the acceptance of the deliverable. I mean, the validate scope is concerned about the acceptance of the deliverable, while the latter is primarily concerned with the correctness of the deliverable. I think this is written in reverse. The former is the quality control, and that deals with the correctness. And the latter is the validate scope, which is responsible for acceptance. So this is slightly, garbled. Control quality is generally performed before validate scope. Although there is a possibility that two processes may be performed in parallel, but as far as it is advised, it is advised that they should be done one after the other. But in some organizations, both of these things are done simultaneously, and that is exactly why they confuse quality control with validate scope. People usually think that user acceptance testing is part of quality. I am 100% sure that most of you must be thinking the same. So anyone who thinks like that, Ji, how many of you? Yeah, Shahriyar. So is it what you think that
Yes, sir.
user acceptance?
Actually,
Yep.
yes, sir. I do think.
Okay, but now is it clear to you or not?
Yes, sir. It is clear.
Quality control is about the correctness, and validated scope is about the completeness. And user
Yes, sir.
acceptance testing is not part of quality control. But when they are done together, naturally they are happening at the same time, and there is a lot of confusion. By the way, I personally feel that people do not have right concepts about quality in organizations. Most of the organizations, they do not have right concepts. When we talk about quality control, they are talking about processes. When they talk about quality assurance, they are talking about deliverables, which is exactly reverse to what the truth is. Remember, quality assurance is about the processes. Quality control is about the deliverables. And that's it. Then are the inputs. Naturally, project plan, project documents, verified deliverables, work performance data, and in verified deliverables, it says the verified deliverables are project deliverables that are completed and checked for correctness through the quality control process. Work performance data can include the degree of compliance with requirements, number of non-conformities, severity of the non-conformities, or the number of validation cycles performed in a period of time. So this is the data important for validate scope. This is respective work performance data which is uh, applicable to validate scope. And you do it through inspection and decision making is voting. Inspection includes activities such as measuring, examining, and validating to determine whether work and deliverables meet requirements and product acceptance criteria. Inspections are sometimes called reviews or product reviews and sometimes walkthroughs. In some application areas, these different terms have unique and specific meaning. In some of the organizations, they may mean separate things, but generally they are the same annotations for the inspection. You can do the inspection for the review purposes, for product review, or you can have the walkthroughs, whatever you want to call it. This is in general the inspection you are referring to. As far as decision making is concerned, an example of decision making that may be used in this process include, but is not limited to voting. There could be other options possible, but most likely you would be using voting. Voting is used to reach a conclusion when the validation is performed by the project team and other stakeholders. So they all have to have a consensus. The outputs will be the accepted deliverables, work performance information, change request and project document updates. Accepted deliverable means the deliverables that meet the acceptance criteria and are formally signed off and approved by the customer or sponsor. This is what means the accepted deliverable. Formal documentation received from the customer or sponsor acknowledging formal stakeholder acceptance of the project's deliverables is forwarded to close project or phase process, and there that is the last process where the things come to an end for the whole project. But as far as the scope is concerned, validated scope is the last process which sends it to them. Work performance information includes the information about the project progress, such as which deliverables have been accepted and which have not been accepted, and the reasons why. This information is documented and described in later in 10.3.3.1, that is in communication, how it is to be communicated to the stakeholders. Then is a change request. The completed deliverables that have not been formally accepted are documented, along with the reasons for non-acceptance of those deliverables. Those deliverables may require a change request for defect repair. The change requests are processed for review and disposition through the perform integrated change control. Naturally, change request is not to be decided by this process alone. This has to be moved to perform integrated change control as if the change control can be processed. Change request can be processed. Project document update will update naturally, as I've said earlier also, the lessons learned register, requirement documents and requirement traceability metrics. Lessons learned register is updated with information on challenges encountered and how they could have been avoided, as well as approaches that worked well for validating requirements. Requirement documentation may be updated with the actual results of the validation activity. Of particular interest is when the actual results are better than the requirement or where a requirement was waived. Then the traceability matrix is updated with the results of the validation, including the method used and the outcome. So that seals the matrix. The matrix gets completed by this process. Next and the last process is control scope. Before that, we can discuss. Let us have any questions till now. Any questions till control scope? Please raise hand. So if there are no questions, let's move on to control scope, being the last process. Interestingly, all the controls are very similar to each other. Whether it is the scope control or schedule control or cost control or whatever the control is, whatever format you will see in this will be almost the same for all the controls. Control scope is the process of monitoring the status of the project and product. Both scopes, project scope and the product scope, are both to be seen here, and managing changes to the scope baseline. The key benefit is that the scope baseline is maintained throughout the project. This process is performed throughout the project, and the inputs, tools, and techniques and outputs would be first of all, inputs, the project management plan, project requirements, project documents, work performance data, and organizational process assets. Project management plan will include allotment management plan, scope management plan, requirement management plan, change management plan, and configuration management plan. And the baselines will include the scope baseline and the performance measurement baseline, which means the schedule baseline, cost baseline, or the baselines are included into it. The documents are the lessons learned register, requirement document, and requirement traceability matrix. Just like in validated scope, we had exactly these items. And we are updating also exactly the same items. You can look at it, the output going out, the project documents being updated are exactly the same three outputs. Okay, and work performance data, naturally, work performance data has to be compared against the project management plan, and ultimately the data analysis will yield it into work performance information for sharing it to the to monitor and control project work. And if there are any change requests, they will be going to perform integrated change control. As far as data analysis itself is concerned, we will be carrying out the variance analysis, how much variance the scope is from the plan, and what is the trend established so far, the trend analysis, and based on that, the change request could be moved. The project management plan will be updated naturally with any changes to the scope management plans and the baselines, the scope, schedule, cost, and the performance baselines. And the documents, as I already said, will be updated with the lessons learned register and requirement documentation and requirement traceability metrics. So this is exactly how the data flow diagram will look like. Project management plan, project documents, direct and managed project work is giving you the work performance data, and organizational process assets are coming from enterprise or organization. The interesting part is the enterprise environmental factors are not required here because we are at the last step of scope, and whatever we need to do here is already available. So enterprise environmental factors may not be impacting us here. But this is just a kind of a expectation that enterprise environmental factor will not have an impact. Generally, they are not shown here. But if at all there is an enterprise environmental factor which can impact the control scope, that then may be used. Work performance information coming out of it goes to monitor and control project work. For development of the work performance report, any change request is moved to perform integrated change control, which could be accepted and sent to execution, direct and manage project work, and the project management plan updates will be adding up to the project management plan, and project document updates will be going to the project documents. Controlling the project scope ensures all requested changes and recommended corrective or preventive actions are processed through the perform integrated change control. So basically, this is passing on all the change requests to the integrated change control. Project scope is, control scope is also used to manage the actual changes when they occur and is integrated with the other control processes. The uncontrolled expansion to product or project scope without adjustments to the time, cost, and resources is referred to as scope creep. Please note this. This is important. I am defining the scope creep. Uncontrolled expansion of product scope or project scope. If anything changes in product scope or the project scope without proper change control, that means without adjustment to the time scope, time and cost, and resources, is referred to scope creep. And scope creep is not allowed. If at all you observe that scope creep has happened somewhere, it has to be regularized through a change request now. Although change is inevitable, therefore some type of change control process is mandatory for every project. Inputs, we have the project management plan, documents, work performance data, and organization process, which is already known to us. As far as the data analysis is concerned, we have two types of analysis going into it. Variance analysis is used to compare the baseline to the actual results and determine if the variance is within the threshold amount or if corrective or preventive actions are appropriate. Trend analysis examines project performance over time to determine if performance is improving or deteriorating, and in whatever is the result of that, the change request can be moved accordingly. Important aspect of project scope control including determining the cause and degree of variance relative to scope baseline and deciding whether corrective or preventive actions are required. In outputs, we have the work performance information, change request, project plan is updated, and documents are updated. As far as the work performance information is concerned, naturally we understand, even we used it in validated scope also. So wherever the work performance data gets in, it after the analysis, it is defined into work performance information. Work performance information produced include the correlated and contextualized information on how the project and product scope are performed compared to the scope baseline. It can include the categories of the changes received, the identified scope variances and their causes, how they impact the schedule or cost, and the forecast of the future scope performance. So this is all within the work performance information. Change request, as we already know a lot about it, the analysis of project performance may result in change request to the scope and schedule baseline or other components of the project management plan. Change requests are processed for review and disposition through perform integrated change control. So all the change requests are sent to perform integrated change control, and there the decision is made whether this change request has been approved or rejected. Project management plan updated, but all to be updated there. Any changes to the project management plan goes through the organization's change control process, and if the change request has been approved, only then these changes can be updated into following documents: scope management plan, scope baseline, schedule baseline, cost baseline, or even the overall performance measurement baseline. Scope management plan, that means the scope management plan may be updated to reflect a change in how the scope is managed. Changes to the scope baseline are incorporated in response to any approved changes. Without approved changes in scope statement are WBS, and naturally WBS dictionary also. And if something is changed, it affects the whole set in planning, and naturally we have to replan certain things accordingly. In some cases, scope variances can be so severe that a revised scope baseline is needed to provide a realistic basis for performance measurement. Schedule baseline, changes to the schedule are incorporated in response to approved changes in scope, resources, and schedule estimates. In some cases, schedule variance can be so severe that a revised schedule baseline is needed, just like in the previous case scope. And same is true for the cost. Changes to the cost baseline are incorporated in response to approved changes in scope, resources, or cost estimates. And again, the same statement of scope cost variance can be so severe that it has to be revised. Performance measurement baseline, actually this is unnecessary, but this is because scope, time, and cost baselines are put together are called performance measurement baseline. It may or may not have been mentioned here. Changes to the performance measurement baseline are incorporated in response to approved change requests, as I said before for all other cases. Project document updates, there are three things: lesson learned register, requirement document, and traceability metrics. And naturally, just like validated scope, they will also be impacted. The lessons learned register can be updated with techniques that are efficient and effective in controlling scope, including causes of variances and corrective actions chosen. Requirement documentation can be updated and additions to be made, and requirement traceability metrics can also be updated to reflect updates to the requirement documentation. So this brings me to the end of the scope chapter, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Any discussion, as if we can move ahead. जी फर्स्ट अजीम जनाब. जी
जी सर, ये आपने अभी वैसे तो क्लियर कर दिया है कि परफॉर्मेंस मेजरमेंट बेसलाइन में इनपुट की बात कर रहा हूँ.
जी जी
बेसलाइन में तीनों इंक्लूडेड है, लेकिन जब हम वो इनपुट वाला टेबल देखते हैं तो उन्होंने स्कोप बेसलाइन को एक सेपरेट भी दिया हुआ है. तो टाइम एंड शेड्यूल को क्यों नहीं दिया हुआ?
कोई जरूरत नहीं थी जी इसको देने की. ये थोड़ी यूं समझ लीजिए कि दिस इज काइंड ऑफ एक तरह से गलती कह लें आप इसको. या तो उनको एक टर्म इस्तेमाल करनी चाहिए, इधर दे शुड यूज द परफॉर्मेंस मेजरमेंट बेसलाइन और स्कोप टाइम एंड कॉस्ट बेसलाइन, बट दिस इज अ काइंड ऑफ अ मिस्टेक. सो एक्चुअली जब ये स्टैंडर्ड्स लिखे जा रहे होते हैं, देयर आर सो मेनी पीपल इन्वॉल्वड. द पीपल हु आर रिस्पांसिबल फॉर क्रिएटिंग द स्कोप, they had their own mindset, and probably ये उनकी प्रूफ रीडिंग से निकल गया. They did not catch it fully.
Okay. Thank you.
Most welcome. Share यार.
जी सर. सर ये बस थोड़ी सी मुझे क्लैरिफिकेशन चाहिए थी परफॉर्मेंस मेजरमेंट बेसलाइन के लिहाज के रेफरेंस से। इसके अंदर ऑलरेडी स्कोप टाइम कॉस्ट इंक्लूडेड है।
जी
तो
जी
मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है सर कि ये वेरीफाई ये अप्रूव स्कोप टाइम और कॉस्ट इसके अंदर जाएगी, ये जो ऑलरेडी अप्रूव्ड हो चुकी होगी चेंज कंट्रोल बोर्ड से, अगर कोई वेरिएंसेस है
जी
प्रोजेक्ट
approved change request that can only baseline can only be changed after the approved change request. Approved change request होगी
ठीक
तब
है।
हम इनको चेंज कर सकते हैं।
ठीक है, तो सर बेसिकली सर बेसलाइन के अंदर अनअप्रूव्ड चेंजेस नहीं होती, राइट?
हाँ जी, नहीं हो सकती, नहीं हो सकती।
ठीक ठीक सर, ये बस क्लैरिफिकेशन चाहिए थी।
ओके, वंडरफुल जी। फैसल, फैसल
Sir, my question regarding scope creep.
जी जी
Scope creep will be continuously known as scope creep even if it is approved from the change control board and
नहीं
change request के against भी हो जाता है, तब
if
भी इसको scope creep ही कहेंगे।
नहीं if a change has been approved by change control, approved change request के through, then it is not called it is not called scope creep. Scope creep is anything which happens without proper change control mechanism.
Sir, happen mean that has been deliverable उसमें आप में कोई generate हो गया है something like this,
हाँ
that will be
नहीं, there are pressures when you are doing your project. There are lot many pressures from the customer. ये specification डाल दो, ये निकाल दो, and sometimes people don't take the proper change control procedure. वो जो उसका change request procedure is not adopted, and therefore such like changes are sometimes invoked. But that is scope creep. That is not allowed. Therefore, that is damaging.
so what is the best way for project manager to manage such situation?
There should be a very strict way, strict implementation of change change control. There should be no allowance for scope creep completely. And if at all there is a scope, अगर आपके ऊपर pressure आता भी है, if there is a scope creep, the thing you can do is that you can immediately move a change request to validate that. Because whenever the scope creep is caught, even later, when you find a scope creep, immediately you regularize it through a change control mechanism. आप उसकी change request करते हैं फौरी तौर पे।
ठीक है सर, थैंक यू।
Most welcome जी। Right. If there are no more questions, let me see if I can give you a test. Are you ready for that? Anyone who does not want to appear in a test? Ji, ready for test or not? Please raise hands. Very good. So be prepared. This is the test and I am launching it. It will appear on your screens. You will do it and you will submit it. And I will be able to see the results and I will announce the results in this session. So I think there's just 17 questions or so. Go ahead and I have just launched it. Next 20 minutes, I will check after 20 minutes. Just raise hand once as if I know that everybody is okay with the test. They can see the test.